Well, good evening, folks. Thank you for coming over out tonight. We also have folks on Zoom as well, so we're going to have some interaction on Zoom. My name is Mike Beam. I'm the Director of Planning and Engineering for the South Dakota Department of Transportation. Thanks again for coming tonight. Tonight's meeting is being recorded, so go ahead and listen later on, but it's really being recorded to ensure that our Transportation Commission, who has the ultimate authority over the actual approval of our statewide transportation improvement program, has the information that we hear from the public and hear from the representatives throughout our state regarding transportation and transportation needs. Now, our meeting tonight is going to be interactive, so I'm going to give you a little time to start thinking about it. Some things I'm going to be asking you are about safety, ways that we can improve safety throughout our state. Our goal is to get everyone home safe every day, so start thinking about that. Ways to help improve infrastructure, things you've seen in other states, maybe things you've seen nationally, but things that you think we'd incorporate in South Dakota. And things that are going well, things that have worked well, things that you've seen actually prove dividends to the citizens of South Dakota. So again, we're going to be interactive, take some notes, be ready to go when I start asking some questions. I do want to introduce a few folks tonight. First of which I'd like to introduce Representative Perry, District 3. Representative, thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you. And Representative Shapauer from District 3 as well. Thank you, Brandon. We also have Jennifer Hyden from Senator Mike Brown's office. Jennifer, thank you. And Andrea Rose Cruz, hopefully I got that right, from Congressman Dusty Johnson's office. And then Jacob Terrell from Senator Thune's office. So thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it, Jacob. Thank you, everyone. And our DOT Commissioner tonight, Don Roby. Thanks for coming out, Don. Appreciate it. So tonight's meeting is again going to be fairly interactive. We're going to be asking for comments and input throughout. We have a microphone. When you're willing or ready to take comments or provide us comments, go ahead and raise your hand. You'll come around with the microphone, introduce yourself and who you represent. We'll go ahead and start having a good conversation about transportation. There's a bunch of additional information in the back. You see, we ran out of a few handouts. We'll get some more. One of the things that we did run out of is our National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan. That plan is available on our website. Just type in the Google search, South Dakota DOT EV plan, and it'll come right up for you. Make sure we have more copies of that available. We also have information related to our carbon reduction strategy, which goes in and take a look at ways to reduce carbon output on the transportation sector. And there's a lot of information regarding funding opportunities, especially for our local governments, regarding the agribusiness grants, industrial park grants, community access grants, and also our bridge improvement grant program that allows for construction of bridges throughout our state. Mark and I are going to work hand in hand through this. Mark Peterson is our Aberdeen region engineer, and Mark's going to introduce maybe a few folks within his team as well. So we'll get right to the presentation, and Mark's going to introduce a few of his area engineers.
And like Mike said, I'm Mark Peterson, Aberdeen Region Engineer. And with us here tonight, I have Bruce Schroeder, who's the Aberdeen Area Engineer.
Yeah. Bruce.
Thanks, Dirk. And Brad Letcher, who's a Huron Area Engineer in the back. And on the left side, we have Matt Bry, who is the Watertown Area Engineer.
Mark, just a little bit about your region, what you encompass, and maybe some projects that you're showing up there right now.
Yeah, sure. So we handle northeastern South Dakota, just shy of 2,400 lane miles of highway. As you can see, we have a lot of projects coming in the next year. I'm gonna be going over a few of the statistics, try not to bore you to death with numbers and just a few spotlight projects, but we're gonna get to talk about those and hopefully you'll have some input for us.
Great. And Dirk, thank you for taking my request seriously and getting engaged early on about the Aberdeen area. Appreciate it. So that was Dirk Rogers, Brown County Superintendent. So thank you, Dirk. Appreciate it.
I feel very gifted and blessed today, Mike, that this is the second time I've had to see you in front of me. So I don't know how my day will finish any better.
For those of you that couldn't hear online, Dirk provided a lot of great comments and accolades. So I appreciate that, Dirk. I really do. And as a reminder, Dirk, as we've talked about this before with directions, if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hands. Mr. Rice can come around with the microphone. So no. Thank you, Dirk. And again, we're intending to really have a good conversation. So what is a conversation and what does engagement look like? And it's having a good talk, right? It's sitting around, it's listening to each other, but it's actually listening and taking that information in and having a conversation about it instead of getting ready to make our points across immediately. We want to have that conversation tonight. Our transportation system is used by all of us in this room. It's used by likely our children, our parents. It's really a lifeblood of what we have and what we enjoy every day. I've used the analogy before about there's not much that's parachuted in, right? It's all brought by a truck. I stole that from former Senator Mike Valley, who's now one of our commissioners. But as you look around, and even in this room or at your home, transportation is so critical. It's everything that you can physically see and touch. There's really not much that's actually growing on the farm and actually used within your facility or within your house right at the farm, right? Everything's trucked in, everything's railed in. So the transportation system, even if you don't drive, you rely on it. You rely on it for your food, your medication. So we take it very seriously. And we want to have that great conversation about what's important in transportation and how can we get better. So as we look at transportation, of course, you need money to start building things, right? So the funding that we get is generally from the Federal Highway Administration, from USDOT. They're federal aid funds. About 75% of our construction program is comprised of federal funds. The remaining balance is state highway funds, and then we partner with our locals, and locals have funds in there as well. So the funds that we have are user fees. Essentially, as you go and drive down the road, you're burning fuel, and that fuel that you burn is taxed. So it's a user fee along with the excise tax. The same thing in the same way the federal government pays for the transportation system through federal aid. Now, unfortunately, on the federal side of the equation, the Federal Highway Trust Fund is about 1/3 insolvent, which means they're not bringing enough revenue on the federal side, so they're having to subsidize that with general funds. But again, the focus and the need for a well-integrated, well-functioning transportation system is noted in Congress to the last few bills, which is why they've injected those funds in order to ensure a good transportation system. Whenever we look at investments, number one priority we want to focus on is safety. Safety is what we're focused on every day, getting everyone home safe every day. This is a trend line. And I think we've all seen trend lines, but I think we need to realize these are lives. These are friends, they're family, they're people we know. We saw a great downward trend up till about 2019 in our serious injury crashes and our fatal crashes. From 2020, 2021, and 2022, we started seeing an uptick. You can see the last year of data that we have in 2022, we have about 137 fatal crashes, 137 people that didn't make it home. A lot of family members that are still mourning those losses. Now today, at the end of June, we're about 17% lower than where we were at last year, which is great. But one life lost is too many. So as we try to focus, and again, I ask you to start thinking about this, what can we do to help improve safety so we get to that zero, that vision of zero fatal crashes and deaths on our roadways? We need to be thinking about what we can do to help improve safety and get everyone home safe every day. We're trying new things that don't necessarily mean building a road. Things like centerline rumble strips, shoulder rumble strips, high friction surface treatments. We're continuing to try to innovate and find better ways to keep people on the road and keep them safe. The numbers, as you can see up there, they show very good trends, but we still have those crashes that are occurring. We're still losing too many people on our roads every year. We're also trying new innovative designs, diverging diamond interchanges. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, that's 41st Street, what that's going to look like after construction is complete. Lower right-hand corner, we just opened up Lacrosse Street diverging diamond interchange. Again, significant reduction in crashes that we anticipate. We also anticipate being able to get people just in vehicles and walking through there easier, more efficiently. The dynamic message boards, those are there to inform travelers what they can anticipate. Again, that information is right at hand, right in front of them as they're driving down that interstate. And of course, mobile apps like South Dakota 511. But that work isn't done. We need to find ways to help improve safety. And I know Mark and his team have done a tremendous job here in Aberdeen, and there's more work coming. Mark, maybe just give us an idea of a couple of things you're planning here in Aberdeen.
So a common theme you'll hear tonight, aside from safety, is we have a lot of shoulder widening and grading projects coming the next 4 years. With the typical section up on the screen, with a grading project, we typically obliterate the old roadway, start over, build a new roadway that's wider, all new drainage structures, new base. With the shoulder widening, we end up with kind of the same typical section, but usually we have a highway that's still in pretty good shape. And we widen them shoulders out to gain some roadway width to reduce them run off the road accidents. And we also get to go through and renew our drainage structures to improve drainage. So that is one common theme you will hear over the course of the evening. Just go to the next. So in the Aberdeen region, we have 13 separate grading and shoulder widening projects, which is an astronomical number. I've never seen that many in a 4-year span for our region. So we have a lot of reconstruction coming that's gonna leave us in the end with a much better product and a safer roadway.
So one of the main reasons that we're focusing on the shoulder widening, getting wider roads for folks in the Aberdeen region and statewide is that we know people make mistakes. And we've all made mistakes, whether we're, it's a silly mistake of looking down the radio, maybe your phone buzzes and you lose your attention for a second or two, but it happens. Our number one fatal crash in South Dakota is single vehicle runoff roadway. So as we're thinking about what can we do to help improve safety opportunities on the road? Number two is intersections. Intersections is the number 2 location where fatal and serious injury crashes occur in our state. And number 3, I put in the car, because I think we all know that people make mistakes. I hit off with that early on. There's driver behavior elements, whether it's seatbelt use or others that cause and result in fatal crashes. So this is where I need some help. I want to hear back from you as the audience. Go ahead and please raise your hand, things you've seen, things you've heard, but ways that we can help improve safety in South Dakota and across our state. One right over here, Mark. Mark that.
Thank you. Thank you. I was going to say that I really encourage everybody to download that 511 app. Because the people that I know and I myself use it, told all my family members to use it. I think it deters people from traveling when the weather conditions are not the greatest. And this past winter we had some pretty horrible days. But also just, the really neat feature is that you can sign up for alerts on certain sections of roadways. And I don't know if people realize that. When I was headed up here, I had every single road that, leaving out of Aberdeen, you can possibly go as an alert. And I just think that app and the improvements on that app they're phenomenal. I really like it.
Thank you, Representative. For those of you that are online, we have maybe a little bit of challenge with the mic, so I'm going to repeat a couple of comments she made. Just focus on the 511 app. Mark, if you could just stay here for 1 second, I want to follow up question if I could. Are there things that you've seen or ways that we can engage the public more to get them involved and let them know the 511 app is out there that folks have seen? We've tried to promote as best we can. Word of mouth seems to be one of the best ways that we can get the word out about the 511 app, but any thoughts from your end?
I did not realize all the features until I went to the website, which I'm on the transportation committee on the House side, and we were encouraged to go check out some different information on the DOT website. And so I just started playing with it, and I'm like, oh, there's different things on the website that you looking at the app wouldn't know. So I encourage everybody to go to the website, which then leads you to all the different options in the app.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Promote the website a little bit more. Julie, we got that? Okay, great, thank you. Anything else regarding safety? Representative Perry?
I just went up to Frederick and Leola, and one of the things that is out there is we have stop signs in good locations. But we should probably look as the people that have those stop signs there, a quarter mile ahead of time to see if there's trees blocking the stop sign so you can't see them. And this is happening on a couple of the side roads. And I can tell you which ones they are specifically, but there was one tree and my wife says there's a stop sign up there. And I said, I don't see it. And then I got past the tree and I could see it. But that could be an issue for somebody in the future, especially if they didn't have their way from them.
Thank you, Representative Perry. And the comment was relating to being able to see the signs that are in place, with the stop signs, and ensuring that the vegetation is under control. And I invite any of you, if you notice a situation like that, you can get a hold of DOT folks, and we can try to get a hold of the individuals that may have that road, and we can help share that. But if you see something, it's not a national security thing, it's South Dakota security thing, okay? But you see something like that, say something and let us know. We want to see everybody get home safe. But great point. We can definitely work with our local partners and review ours as well to make sure that we don't have vegetation blocking those stop signs. That's great. Thank you. Anyone else on safety? So got one back there.
First off, thank you all for coming. I'm Dirk Rogers from Brown County. I mean, these are, first thing jumps into my head is phones. That's like the no-brainer of all time. But, you get into enforcement, or how do you regulate that unless you just pound it into their heads. Intersections, I'm glad to hear my friend Carl brought that up. Although it's probably targeted at the county or the township, because you have a very comprehensive program for sight distances, but that is something that has been an issue. And I don't want to be too specific about talking about it, but that's a big deal. And there's a whole bunch of, not just trees, fences, frequently on unengineered roads or not overly regulated rural developments, you run into all kinds of problems with your sight distance. In the car, that's a behavior thing. In the car and on the road, a lot, in my opinion, for individuals, it's a lot of behavior things, and I'm not smart enough to know how you calm that into people. In the car, you got to get rid of your distractions. I think it's the city here, and you can't eat your food while you're driving, I believe. It sounds silly, but it's a pretty good rule. You ever tried to eat a Big Mac and driving with your knee and talking on the phone? So there's so much of this that's tied to the psyche of people. So I think if you can, everybody remembers the old Campbell soup jingle, or don't do drugs, or this is your brain on drugs. We all remember that stuff. I don't know how you come up with a catchy thing, but promoting it's a big part of it. Intersections, at least that, again, I'm talking from the perspective of the local guys. The most obvious thing to me is when the state and all their benevolence gave us 176 miles of road over the years. Those roads at the time were all set up where that was the primary road, and you had all these roads coming into it, and then it stopped, and then the traffic flows, and the way the land was developed and everything else was tied to where that road was. And now we build a 4-lane or whatever out a mile over on a lot of these roads. And you still, it's hard to get people to change their habits, but you end up where a lot of these, feeders now coming into the old state road, way higher traffic counts now than the state road itself. So there's a lot of evaluations at the local level to do that. And then to look at them and see maybe we're not running the traffic the right way here. And then in general, if there's, the state does a lot of big projects, and I'm gonna hit it from the safety side of it, but we have that experience here. We've had a couple of experiences that have been great with Brown County working with the state on detours. I know one of them was the most palatable situation for the state by the time it was done. But when I look at that, I'm thinking, overall, like on one of those that was a success, the cost of that road relative to what the state project was, if there was ever a way to hook some safety improvements to an existing job, like something in the state, you have a $10 million job in there. There's some things that the locals could hook onto that in some sense. I have no clue as to, how the funding mechanism works, or what I'm saying there. I'm not sure how you get there. But I gotta think there's some value. And you're doing a big project out east of Aberdeen right now. Not that we can afford concrete at our paltry county funding system, but if there was a project out there that had something, if there was an aspect about that you could incorporate into the project somehow, that would be something. I can't say enough about I drive on your shoulder widening projects. And experiencing watching that project evolve compared to a full grading project and still end up where you ended up with it. I think that's utter genius on minimizing the impact to the traveling public where you're trying to make the road safer at the same time. It's pretty awesome. I know everybody wants to go home soon, so I'll shut the hell up. But those are my comments on safety, and I'm sorry I can't help myself.
No, Derek, and I appreciate it, and I'll try to summarize best I can here for the folks listening online too. Number one comment was behavior related elements of the driver, and phone usage. That was one thing that you brought up. Construction of new highways or new state routes adjacent to old state routes, when those intersecting roads come in, some challenges with that. Vegetation management can be an issue. You mentioned that as well. And also partnering with the state when we got a project coming through. So I think those are the main points that I pulled out of that. I got more of it than that, Dirk, but just trying to quick summarize them. You know, I greatly appreciate our partnership we've had with you and our county highway soups over the years. That transportation system is interconnected. And if there's ways that we can leverage some safety improvements with our grading projects as we go forward, maybe that's an opportunity for us to reach out to the counties. We're doing those projects saying, hey, we're going to be reconstructing from point A to point B. Do you have any safety needs within the nearest X number of miles or whatever, whether it's signing improvements or anything, as we can leverage that when we're out there. As for other safety needs, whether it's vegetation or hotspots, I mean, please get a hold of us. We do have opportunities to help fund those safety improvements. I think, you know, you and Brown County and others have leveraged that to some degree, but I think there's more opportunity there. Maybe it's better lines of communication for where we're seeing our issues out there. And I think that's something maybe we need to talk about our next meeting we go with the county highway soups. How can we leverage our resources together to improve safety in some of these areas? Maybe that's a great opportunity for us. So thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to keep trying to do this because safety is an important thing for us, but it's not the only thing we look to manage and try to maintain and good repair for our citizens of South Dakota. Obviously, safety is only one thing. We need to have bridges and roads in order for that to really function. So as you look at the bridges and number of structures in South Dakota, there's over 5,700 bridges in South Dakota. And I love this map because you can tell where the rivers are, the main rivers, the Jim, Big Sioux, tributaries. Really just delineated very well on this map, but with 57,000 structures across our state, they're in all sorts of age and disrepair. And some are relatively new and some are not new, built in the early 1900s. On the state highway system, as we look at our bridges, we really look at what's the number of bridges or percent we have in good, fair, or poor condition. So historically, we've seen our bridges being about 95% above or above being in that good to fair condition. You can see where we're at right now in 2023. We're sitting around 97%. We're anticipating that to drop a little bit as we move into the future. It's okay. We have some very, very large structures that we're planning to build throughout our state. Flat Winter Bridge alone is over a mile long. When we measure percent by the condition by deck area or how long that bridge is, how many square feet is it, you can imagine as soon as that bridge goes into poor condition, it's going to really start moving some of those numbers downward. But we're planning to take those structures and replace those structures over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 years. Pier 4 Pier Bridge is under construction right now. We hope to have the Flat Winter Bridge under construction here at the end of 2024. We're also looking at the Gettysburg or Forest City Bridge coming up in the next few years as well, part of our major bridge investment study. It's not just looking at those bridges and rebuilding them. We're trying to find better ways to build them, make them more resilient for flooding, the upper left-hand corner, using unmanned aerial systems for inspections, trying to ensure that we catch those things before they become a problem, using stainless steel on our decks so that we don't see the rusting or the corrosion that occurs with steel in our decks. And again, makes that structure last even longer. Now, bridges are just bridges, so without pavements, you don't have a road. As we look at our pavements, over 8,800 miles of pavements in South Dakota. This kind of shows the condition of our pavements. We want to see that line, that black line, at about 20% of pavements being in poor or fair condition, or like I like to say it, 80% in good to excellent condition. And you can see where we're at right now, which is about 90% of our pavements are in good to excellent condition, where we're projecting to be the next 10 to 15 years. Again, we anticipate a little bit of a decline in our condition, but we still feel we're within our performance measures. So we're not just, again, looking to replace pavements. We're trying to find better ways to do things. Whether it's intelligent compaction in the upper left-hand corner, using GPS technology, thermal imagery, trying to ensure that we get great compaction on that asphalt pavement, next generation concrete pavement on the very bottom, or notched wedge joint, trying to ensure that we're as tight as we can possibly be when we bring those two asphalt mats together, ensuring that we get the life out of that pavement and try to find better ways to do things. Now in the Aberdeen region, Mark mentioned that we have a lot of work coming up, the number of grading projects we have coming up. And we have a huge investment coming up in the Aberdeen region. Mark, maybe just a brief overview of what we're looking at.
Thanks, Mike. So with the projects in the Aberdeen region and the projects that are in this handout, we have 102 mainline projects for roughly 650 miles and about $700 million. Now to go along with that, there's also various different grant programs throughout the state, TAP, CRP, Protect projects, also grants for, or budget budget for pavement preservation projects. So our pavement preservation, we only plan 2 years out, and then we have a lump sum set up within the budget. So there's 135 million in that as well. And then you also have our big grants for the county bridges and the federal bridge replacement program. All in all, we're looking at a $750 to $850 million investment within the Aberdeen region over the next 4 years. And we will be touching about 50% of our roadways within the region. So a little over 1,200 miles.
$750 million. And many years ago, when I started with the department, I don't want to age myself, but over 20 years ago, I remember a program being a little over $100 million for the entire state. So it's been partially inflation and changes with time, right? But we're also seeing significant investments in our state, again, for us, our children, our grandchildren, just something to be very proud of. So as we look at our transportation system, we need to ask ourselves again, how can we get better? Pavements, bridges, lighting, signals. What are you seeing out there? What are you seeing in other states? What's going well? Where do we need to continue our emphasis? I think Dirk maybe has a hand up.
I was just curious if the money amounts in the Aberdeen region, is that a similar thing across the state, or is there something specific to the Aberdeen region right now that makes that number bigger, whatever?
It's fairly similar across the portion, across the state. And it's similar to what we've seen in years past, a steady increase as we're going. You know, there may be, you know, the Mitchell region with the Sioux Falls projects, there's going to be some very high dollar projects there that will bump that region's numbers up. Or, you know, the Platte Winter Bridge, you know, you're looking at what, $250 million. $250 million. So that's going to be a huge bump for that region. But overall, we have pretty good balance throughout the regions. We sit down every year, twice a year, to make sure we're balancing those projects out and we're getting the money where it needs to go.
Yeah, maybe to add on to that too, Mark, I don't know what your thoughts, but maybe a little bit more grading than we've seen in the past, and then maybe, well, more local government bridge improvement grant and a local federal program. You guys have a lot more water up here than other parts of the state, so maybe more of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Even this year, I think we have 33 local bridges just in the Huron area that we're taking on. But yeah, exactly.
Who has some thoughts how we can improve and how we get better in our pavements, our bridges, things you've seen that worked?
I have a couple of things, and one of them is that if we go back to safety, as we talked through this.
Definitely represent the area. Yep.
That would be lights. Somehow we got to get so that people that are driving in cars, when it gets a little bit toward dusk, they actually turn their lights on. I'm not sure if we need to have $1,000 fines or whatever, but we can eliminate some deaths and some fatalities if we can do something about that. And if it's something that we need to do legislatively, you need to tell us what we need to do, because I think that's something important. And the other one I had on here was, as we advance EV, it is not a subject that I'm excited about, but if we do advance, and as we do advance, what's going to happen to our tax from fuel? Because how do we replace that tax? I think, you know, we can talk about fixing the roads, but when we get to the point where the EV vehicles are destroying our roads, and how do we pay for it? And that would be a safety factor. And can I give you one more, and then I'll go?
Please do.
This one here is the Super Tube. I want to congratulate you for the Super Tube between here and Ipswich. I think it's outstanding. And I know that you must have a plan to go the rest of the way from Ipswich to Mobridge, because you guys are foresighted and smart to do the right thing. Because we need to take care of our agricultural people, our medical people, and our education people. And if I have a student and I have similar roads going to Bismarck or going out to Rapid or whatever, or coming to Aberdeen, I could go anywhere. But if I have better roads coming to Aberdeen, I'm gonna send my kids here because this is better medical. If I can have my parents go to Aberdeen because of medical. I like that better. So I think that we need to, and I know last year it was said that that's something we will put in the plan, but we will do it and do it are two different things. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Maybe just to keep the conversation going a little bit, I'll have to do some research on the headlight requirement. I'm fairly confident it's at dusk and dawn, but I'll do a little looking on that when the requirement comes in play for headlights. Really regarding the EVs and the changes that we're seeing there, I kind of started off with our funding table that showed that these are user fees, right? So you fuel up, you pay your fair share to go use the roads, regardless of if you're from Alaska coming through South Dakota or you're South Dakota driving on the roads, you pay your fair share. And this has been a topic that, I think has been a challenge nationally. And we're engaged with some other states. We're doing some research and trying to understand how some other states have dealt with this. And I think we'll see more of that, more review and options coming forward. But, I think it's a challenge that we can see coming. Had a chance to visit with some folks from California, and they've implemented some different laws in California than we've implemented here in South Dakota. One of those is to essentially limit the sale of internal combustion engines by a certain date. And just the changes they've seen from internal combustion engines and fuel tax revenues relating to that and the EV transitions really created some challenges for them. It's something that I think we can see coming, so we need to figure this out and work towards a good solution on it. I completely agree. And if folks have ideas for how that could work, please share them. I mean, we're all ears and want to hear what folks' ideas are, definitely.
The EV. I'm sorry, but the EV, one of the things that is a problem or is an issue is the batteries on them are very heavy, so like our roads heavier. The other thing is they're coming out with new technology where you can go 700 miles now with a Tesla type thing. So they fill up in Minnesota, they go all the way across 70 or 90, or else they come across 12 and they cut through 281 and everything else. But they fill their gas again when they get into Colorado. So how do you get your user fee if they don't stop? But if they do stop, the rumor is that it might be there for a week before you get filled up.
I have heard of folks hauling a generator on the back of their EVs. That's not completely far-fetched because sometimes they don't have that potential to charge. And the point you hit on is folks traveling through our state. We have some of that now, but generally with an internal combustion engine, you're not getting 700 miles on a tank unless you're hauling a tank with you. But those are going to be real challenges as batteries or other fuel sources, hydrogen or other sources start coming to play more. It's going to have an impact. South Dakota right now, we don't have a huge number of EVs registered. They're just, that's partially our climate is part of that. But we do see quite a few more coming through, and we're seeing more and more folks with EVs. So it's going to be a challenge. And again, if you get some ideas for it, or if anyone does, please share them. We're trying to solve this as well. One last thing I think you had a comment on was Super 2. And I'm glad to hear that Super 2 is working great from Ipswich to Aberdeen. We ran into some significant crashes out there before those modifications took place. We put centerline rumble strips in that helped immediately. We still had the need out there for people to get by and pass safely. So I know there's been a couple of tweaks that we've had to make out there with some light poles and some other things, but overall it's been very good comments we've gotten from that. So do we anticipate more of those going out? Yes. Regarding complete Super 2 all the way to Mobridge, can't commit to that. Those decisions are generally based upon traffic, right? We're looking at congestion, percent time following, and safety. We'll again commit to take a look and see where we're at on that. Last time we looked at it, the volumes weren't high enough, but again, we'll continue to look at that. As we manage that system, I think we have some more Super 2s going in across the state. We don't have a lot of them, but the ones we have had put in so far have been worked very well. So thank you very much. Representative, I think you had a question.
Yeah. Just from being on the transportation committee, I do believe, and don't quote me on the dollar amount, but I do believe anybody that has an EV registered in South Dakota has a fee on to their licensing because they don't pay the gas tax at the pump. And we have talked, how going forward will we recoup the losses, if we get more EVs. I think it's $50 right now. I'm not 100% positive. The second thing, So with an EV and the battery and the heat that is caused in a crash and a fire from the EV, does the road surface texture have to be better, or do we have to do something to preserve the roads, shall we say, if there are, there's an EV crash? Because I do know that the burn of the car is pretty significant. And so does the pavement, does it have to be improved as we go forward with the EVs? And last question, on the super 2, do you, is that based on volume of traffic or accidents in the mileage?
Yeah, great questions. I'll do the best I can to get back and hit on those. I do believe the annual fee is $50 per registered vehicle in South Dakota, which definitely captures that travel for South Dakotans. And to what range is compared to fuel or revenue collected from fuel tax, that's not anything I can really get into right now. That of course wouldn't count for folks driving through our state, but again, I think that's something that Representative Perry brought up as well. As it relates to EVs and fire, we do have fires now on our roadway when there's crashes sometimes, and unfortunately, you'll see some black marks on our pavements and on our roadways, and sometimes it do require us to go and patch it and do some repairs. I haven't heard a lot, but that's a great question that I need to reach out to some of our southern states and ask them if you've had crashes involving EVs, did it significantly impact the pavement in that area? To see if they've had issues with it. Off the cuff, I think generally what we do is have to do some remove and replace right in that area, whether it's concrete or asphalt. But that's a good thing, excuse me, for me to reach out to other states and see what they've done, if they've seen issues with it. The last one was on the Super 2, and it's not just one thing. So it could be traffic volume, excuse me, which we're looking at percent time following. So it's how long are you having to follow somebody, because people tend to get impatient when they're spending a lot of time following. So we're looking at a lot of that to help make those decisions. Our traffic engineers, they've invested their entire career in looking at traffic volumes, whether it's at signals or 2-lane roads or 4-lane roads. So they're heavily involved in looking at that, doing traffic counts. They're looking at trucks and all sorts of good stuff from the capacity standpoint. From a safety standpoint, that can come into play too. Do we see a lot of crashes? Are we seeing high potential of crashes out there where people are taking risks when they shouldn't? We're probably also going to look at, number of hills that are out there or passing opportunities, how much should it is percent passing? Is it 30% or 50%? And could we provide those opportunities? So we're trying to use as many different tools to identify that improvement. So it could be any number of things, but yeah, great questions. And thank you so much. Thank you. Back.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Weiss, Brown County Commissioner. And since you're being so free-form with it, I have a couple quick observations and then just a question locally and stuff. Do appreciate, in the region, the long-term approach that you guys have taken to things. One note of that, for instance, is State 10 with the bridges improvement on that. That's been a multi-year project, but it really, the north part of our county and our neighbors has been a significant improvement, and it's taken a long, it's taking time, but it's done in a methodical approach to be able to holistically get that whole project done. And then also appreciate, your patience and willingness to take feedback and stuff. And I'll use as an example, and I get up there, fairly frequently and stuff. For many years, there was a contingent from Citizens that came because it was on your plan for a number of years to put the roundabouts in at Citizens, and there was a lot of pushback on that. And pretty much everybody, when I have a chance to, when I talk to them in Citizens, are delighted with the result of those roundabouts and the way it's improved traffic flow in the community, although it was change. Once they've seen it in action, it really has improved from, folks' perception of that stuff. I'm just curious. Selfishly, I know that you guys do surveys on an annual basis to keep track of traffic counts and stuff, but with the increase in some of the traffic that we've had in Aberdeen over the last decade or two, with things settling down with traffic patterns for the B plan with AGP and things like that. We work together with the city, for instance. We don't allow semis with pups on 8th Avenue, which is not a world, but it is a through street and so forth. So it's changed some of those dynamics. As difficult as it was to realign the north-south highway going through Aberdeen, there's much traffic that's on the south side. Have you guys taken a fresh look at long-term, possibly what might work down there? And I know it's difficult with the airport, the way it's structured in the property and stuff. They're just curious if you've taken a fresh look or another look at that long-term, or we might get some relief on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mike, for coming. And one thing I'd like to get feedback on from you tonight is how was the format of this meeting compared to previous meetings too, and folks that have attended in the past, is this a better way to handle things or the old way too? So, but yeah, and regarding, have we taken a look at congestion and traffic pattern changes in Aberdeen here recently? And I'm trying to think of the last Aberdeen master transportation plan that we've done. Do you recall one recently here, Steve, or not?
And the last one, the one was in 12, I don't know if we get it up.
So Steve's not on the microphone here, so I'll repeat what Steve said. I think Steve mentioned that the last one he recalled would have been in 2012 timeframe, but Robin said he made sounds about right, 2012 timeframe. So one of the things we can do, and we try to promote a lot, is doing a master transportation plan. That, and again, it doesn't just take a look at one issue, it takes a look at how does everything work together. We found that by doing that, sometimes the improvements can be minimal in cost in multiple areas to have a big benefit overall. So maybe that's something that we want to talk with Aberdeen and others about doing another transportation plan, master transportation plan, seeing how things have changed. What do we need in the future? What does 20 years look like, or 30 or 40? Great point.
Well, as long as these guys have talked, I might as well fill in here too. The bridge improvement grant program has been outstanding. Not to date myself, when I started with the city, bridges were at least 20 years out before we could see any kind of funding availability for local bridge system. And we've got one through and another one on the way. And we're thankful because they've been load limited for a long time. It's a program that is really has been needed, and we appreciate it. Second thing is, I see on your program, you have the adaptive system for 6th Avenue, Highway 12. That will be another, you talk about safety things. When people get frustrated on these roads, one of the first things they do is they start taking chances. And I think the adaptive system will help overall relieve some of that frustration, hopefully, and keep people maybe a little safer on the highway. And we're seeing the truck numbers and everything, as Mike mentioned, going up significantly, and this should help us get through that in a more graceful manner, because we're getting into the finish line on some of this stuff right now. But I think this adaptive system is going to be really good.
Right, thank you, Robin. Yeah, and it'll be the first one we have in our state system. So Aberdeen's not the guinea pig. They're out there in South Dakota. They're out there nationally, but it'll be the first one I think that we'll have in our state system. And with the spacing and everything, we're very hopeful it's going to improve safety, people's travel time reliability too. They get through there when they expect to get through there. Maybe not stop 10 times one time and once the next time, but yeah. So we're very excited about that as well. And want to hear feedback after it's in. But let it get through a couple kinks first before you give us too much feedback right away. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. Again, it's trying to use that technology and how can we make better lives, better transportation, but with technology and make it easier for folks. So thank you. Okay, we're going to switch over and I'm going to ask Mark to share just a little bit on some projects that he's got coming up, some highlighted ones. So in your packet, you should have a packet. If not, you can go ahead and grab one. But there's actually numbers on that left-hand side. Those are the sequence numbers. So you can kind of follow along. You'll go year by year, 24, 25, 26, so on and so forth. So Mark, maybe you want to share a little bit what some projects that are coming up.
Well, I'm going to share a few here, but I don't have the gift for gab like Mike does. So this is only going to be about 8 to 10 projects over the next 4 years. But the first one I wanted to talk about a little bit, South Dakota 37 in Huron, which is item number 4 on your list. That's going to be urban grading and new concrete. We got about a 4-block segment. We're going to transition to a 3-lane and a downtown core. Working with the city on that project, but overall it's about a mile-long project for $10 million, where we will do urban reconstruction, and that's in 2024. A little closer to home in 2024, actually I have 2 projects shown here. The first one, item number 10, which is the structure that goes over the Jim River at Sand Lake, just west of Houghton. That'll be a full bridge replacement for about $10 million. Those of you that know the structure, there's a picture of the roadway on the bottom left there. You can see we got some pretty heavy patching, undermining issues under the abutments, and the structure is reaching the end of its life. And then to the east of that, as you see the long orange line on the highway there, that is a shoulder widening project from Britain West. That'll be a 2-year project. It's item number 11. And that's a $27 million shoulder widening job. As you see the roadway on the bottom right-hand side there, there's not a lot of shoulder up there. We have some drainage structures we need to rehab, but our surface is still pretty good and the roadway is still pretty good. So that meets the requirements very well for a shoulder widening job. In 2025, Highway 28 from Esteline to South Dakota 15, which is item number 98 on your list. That's a $21.5 million grading job where we will fully reconstruct the roadway. And also on that stretch, just to the west of it, we have Highway 28 again, just on the east side of Lake Ponset from 192nd Street to about 5 miles west of Esteline. That's also a grading project, item number 102 for $11.7 million, and we will be replacing a structure on that as well. Both of those, as you can see from the pictures, again, roads with narrow shoulders or non-existent shoulders, and in both of those instances, we've kind of reached the end of the lifespan on the roadways, so it's best to completely tear the road out and start over. Also in 2025, we have Highway 14 from Iroquois to Smith, which is item number 105. If you're familiar with that route, it's a very old plain jointed concrete pavement that goes thump, thump, thump as you run down the highway. We are going to rubbleize that road completely and then do asphalt concrete over the top. That's a $22.7 million job. In 2026, we have the second segment in Huron on South Dakota 37. That'll be just south of the one we're doing in 2024, where we will complete our urban reconstruction on South Dakota 37 through Huron. And we also have some drainage enhancements that'll run about a mile south of town with that project. That'll be a full width regrade, new concrete, and tie in with any city work. Also in 2026, the project on the screen is Fort Thompson, where we have 3 different highways converge, and we are going to do urban grading, shared use path, lighting, structures, safety enhancements for about $15.6 million. That's item 155 on your project list. And that'll be a good enhancement there. We have a lot of pedestrian traffic down there along the river. We will be doing a shared use path all the way out to the dam and the swimming area and all the way through town. In 2027, we have South Dakota 37, item number 207 on your list. From 12 miles south of Highway 28 up to 28, and that's a full grading job as well. Again, another narrow roadway. The roadway surface and drainage structures have reached the end of their life, so we're going to tear that out fully and rebuild. And that's for $23 million. And then last but not least, we have our last segment of South Dakota Highway 15 from Clear Lake north up to US 212. That's item number 216. And that is also a full-blown grading project for $17.1 million. And all these grading projects, what typically will happen, we will reconstruct them in a year and do a temporary surface and then come back the next year and put a brand new asphalt mat on top. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mr. Beam.
Thank you, Mark. So that's going to essentially conclude our overall presentation, and we had some good conversation going regarding safety improvements and ways to improve transportation overall. As you took a look at your list, hopefully you had a chance to take a look, or maybe at the maps, just any more comments, questions, why aren't we doing this route? What is this route planned? Or any concerns relating to what you're seeing in the Aberdeen region? Or anything overall as far as safety that you want to share with us tonight, and we can share with our commission.
Something that's going to be coming up in the future, and I'm not sure how much of the future it's gonna be in, but we've done some good things with what we're doing on the roads, but there's the people have a pup. And now they're getting into multiple pups. How many pups are we gonna allow? And then the second part of that is, are we gonna be allowing the no driving behind the driver vehicle? They have a vehicle like a lead driver, and then a pretend driver will be in the one behind. Are we resisting those things, or are those things coming? And then the same thing with cars. I've watched television and I see cars that somebody is driving in with, and they're singing and everything, but watching the road. And I'm just wondering if we're encouraging that because somebody says we should.
Okay, great comments, questions. I'll try to hit them best I can here. So we do have particular routes in our state. They're called long combination vehicle routes. They're generally our expressways. It allows for a longer combination truck trailer, and you will see 3 sometimes, but they're still limited in overall length. It's longer than just a standard requirement, but we do have those routes, and it does a lot of good things. One, it allows that freight to move through our state more efficiently with one truck instead of multiples. We also have those corridors that aren't congested, and they're very safe. So our interstate system are some of those. I would believe Highway 37, a portion of it 12. So those are things that we see as good opportunities. As far as how many pups can be behind a truck, there's still the state requirements that we have out there for length of vehicles and combination. There's some ag exemptions out there too. So if those things come up or you're noticing in other locations, please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to look into it and work with our partner in Highway Patrol and Motor Carrier. But as we look at freight moving, we did have a bill several years ago to allow essentially the vehicle or a truck to follow behind another vehicle called truck platooning. And there was a huge benefit to that from a fuel efficiency standpoint for the driver, I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think there was like a 5% fuel savings for the lead and a 15% for the follower. But there would be a driver in each one of those vehicles. So as we look, what's the future going to hold regarding what we call autonomous vehicles? That's something that we're going to have to take a look at. What is our law allow and what's coming down the pike for Tesla and some of the vehicles. And I'm sure many of you folks have driven in a vehicle where all of a sudden your seat starts buzzing, or your wheel actually corrects a little bit as it gets too close to the center line. There's just different levels of autonomy there in vehicles right now. So some of that autonomy is currently in the vehicle you're likely driving now. When you back up, you'll get a beeping sensor, or again, it'll try to correct you back in a lane, or maybe do an auto stop if it sees the vehicle approaching closely. But as that continues to evolve and we continue to see that technology improve, I think we're going to have to look at what does that mean for South Dakota and how is it going to work. I don't think we have the answers, but if you have input on it, that's what you'd like to see. Help share it with us so that we can help in that area. But definitely something that's coming down the pike.
I wanted to say one thing about the comment on the driverless vehicles. Obviously, we're not in the same, it's not as far down the road, no pun intended, as the electric vehicles are. But there's a correlation, and I don't think if I insult your intelligence here, I don't intend to. But people are missing the connection between the driverless vehicle and all that stuff you had up on the screen, because you look at the toward zero death or toward zero death programs and all those things over the last 20 years, the state has systematically analyzed everything and then created your programs to address those things. There was used to grade all the time. And Mark's right, I've seen grading projects. The last one I can think of is 45 north of Miller, 15, 18 years ago. That was a full-blown, real live grading project around here,
And now you're going back to that again, because we're back to having runoff, crashes. Diverging diamonds, side note on that for safety, that's something you gotta educate the public about. There should be a question about that in the driver's exam bill. Because I do road stuff and I have for 30 years and I have no goddamn idea what I'm doing when I go through those things. I don't know if you're supposed to take the whole thing, if you're running perpendicular to it all at once, or do you stop? And Graham, what you don't or Buick is not faring any better than I am, so. It's awesome because you're taking them out of the stream of traffic to start the deceleration and make the corner. I mean, I get that part of it. But I don't think a lot of people know what the heck you're supposed to do running perpendicular to a diverging diamond. Me included. So that's my side note about that. Back to the driverless vehicle. So you eliminate that crash. What's our next crash? Oh, we're having trouble with too steep of inslopes. All right, everything with federal money's got to be an 8-to-1 or flat. If it isn't, we're gonna put up guardrail. I mean, we've gone through all these things trying to make the road physically safer. And now we're to the point where the only problem we have now is the way that people act. And that's why we end up with driverless cars. It's not a conspiracy, it's not anything else. When you just are gonna follow the statistics on safety all the way to the T, at the end of the day, your two things up there about what's happening in the car, and that is fuel. That's, and maybe I'm way off here, but to me, as I've watched that progression, we've tried to eliminate every other thing, and the only thing left to eliminate is the person driving the car, because that's the problem. So that's my observation about that, and nothing against Brent Carl over there, but driverless car origin is a safety issue. It's not really anything else, in my opinion.
Thanks, Derek. And maybe a couple things we want to hit on. You know, driver education is very important. Just a couple of years ago, we added roundabouts into the driver's manual because we didn't really have a lot of roundabouts. So we added, how do you drive in a roundabout? Your point on putting a divergent diamond in there and the types of interchanges, I don't think we got that one in there because I don't think we had it last time we reviewed it. We should be looking at that. And, you know, how can we go about educating folks on new changes and new technology, whether it's diverging diamond or a roundabout or any number of things? We don't have the right answer. I mean, we don't know who's going to drive through the interchange La Crosse Street. We don't know who's going to hit 41st Street. So what we've done is we tried to make it as intuitive as possible. As you pull up to that stop sign or the stoplight, there's only one way to go, and that's the way through the diverging diamond. And we've also put some mats out and let people walk through it, trying to show it. We went to the Black Hills, help me out there, the Black Hills Stock Show, and laid out our mat and talked with people too. And again, I think you're right on. We got to get out there and make sure we're talking with folks on these new things and how they're going to work. And we got to keep doing that. Get other ideas for how we can help educate. Again, we're all ears. We want to know what you're hearing out there from folks as well. I don't think we have a diversion diamond coming up here in Aberdeen. I know we got a couple down in Sioux Falls area that are coming up and being planned. So there's going to be a change. If you ever get Sioux Falls, which I assume some of you do, you'll end up driving through one. So there's some opportunity for us there to help out with the education for how these things work. And it kind of goes back to, we call it the Swiss cheese analogy. So if you got to shoot something through the cheese and you got Swiss cheese, let's just say you can't hit the cheese. So if the holes line up perfectly, then a crash can happen. But if the Swiss cheese analogy, and you call it Swiss cheese, all the holes don't line up perfectly, right? So the theory is there. Well, one of these things is going to help prevent a crash, whether it's the inslope, the guardrail, maybe some of the autonomy level of things, reducing decision points, and that's what we're considering to be what's called a safe systems approach. So not near as many decisions for a driver as they come up to an intersection, especially a heavily trafficked one. We're exploring that area. What can we do to help in that area so there aren't as many decisions? I think a diverging diamond has got like 13 or 14 conflict points, whereas a standard interchange has more than double that. So again, it's just trying to reduce the potential using that Swiss cheese analogy. But yeah, people got to know how to do it too. So I really appreciate the comments. Thank you. Anyone else?
Scott Sundberg with City Radio News here in Aberdeen. I know it's a summertime, but we just went through one of the more hectic winters we've had out here. And we always hear about snow plows being on the roads trying to give yourself some extra distance between them, but half the time, we don't even know when the plows are gonna be on the roads. Is there a way that we can better inform the public that the plows are out there to make sure that they give them some of that extra distance that they need?
Yeah, great question. I'm gonna turn this over to Craig after I do one thing. I know our maintenance crew isn't here, but we're gonna record this, and Derek, your crew out in Brown County, the work you all did over the winter, trying to keep things open, I think those folks deserve a round of applause. So if you would please help with that, the work they did. They spent a lot of nights and Christmases and birthdays away from family and nights in the shop trying to keep people safe and save them. So maybe you want to hit on that a little bit, Craig?
Sure, Craig Smith, I'm the Director of Operations, and you are right, our snowfall crashes have been a persistent problem. And trying to get drivers awareness, and it is difficult in this low visibility. We did have the blue lights a couple winters ago when legislation was passed to allow those. Kind of under the autonomous vehicle, there's a lot of research being done on ways to provide communication on those locations through GPS information, and the real challenge is how do you get that information to the drivers? We try to put things on our message boards, but I think as we go forward, there are other states that have been using that technology and trying to use that to communicate to drivers that there's a snowplow ahead in this lane and those types of things. So I think you'll see that going forward. We are also moving towards having all of our snowplows have GPS on them for some of our own use, but we're ideally, once we get there, then we can have a public facing system to show locations of trucks so people know the hours we're out operating in that. But until we get to that 100% coverage, we're probably going to continue to use that internally. So hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll probably have that 100% coverage where we can look at maybe more public information out there like some of the other states have done.
Craig, what are your plow teams and Pete, what are you running for general hours? And when do they start in the morning and when do they usually quit?
Yeah, so good question. So our general operating hours for winter is 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. We do extend that in some of our metro areas. So Sioux Falls, Rapid City, we've got some 24-hour coverage. Some crews will go forward maybe a little after 4 in the morning till later than 7, just depending on traffic or events or things like that. But generally 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. we are a 1 shift winter operation in general in South Dakota.
Maybe one more thing to add on that with 511, there's information when you've suspended maintenance and closures. Is that fair that you guys have done that?
Correct. Yeah. So when the trucks, if they are done for the day overnight, that to the point using that 511 app, that information, those routes and shops show that as maintenance suspended. So when you see that, that means the trucks either done for the night due to the hours, or sometimes we'll put that up if we got very low visibility as well, where it's just not safe to have our trucks out.
Great question. Thank you. Are there improvements that you're seeing out there we can make on that?
I just wondered if, oh, sorry. I'm just wondering, like, because I work at the media and a lot of time I'm on the air, but I think you basically probably answered it about the only way you can, especially you said 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. is the normal hours of operation, but how much snow would actually have to be on the ground to get the plows to actually go out on the roads?
It's not really a question of how much snow is on the ground. It's a question of, are we gonna have weather conditions that are gonna impact the roadway surface and the safety of the traveling public? So it may be an 1/8 of an inch of snow or rain or 2 inches. It just depends on the weather conditions we got and what it's doing to the roadway.
Anyone else? You're in the back.
Someone on that other side of the room be ready for the next question, so keep them running. Your cameras are a resource as I was listening to Scott's question there. Boy, I would, at one point, I was even gonna contact y'all and see if we can partner on them, because up around Hecla, there's there's not one. So that's something that I think people are really missing out on. Cause you don't even have to read and interpret anything. You can just pop up the camera and look at the road and look at the area and get a pretty good handle on visibility and everything. So I have no clue what one of those setups costs. And I also think I'd probably stop to relieve myself underneath them out on the highways before, until I figured out where they were all at. But, at any rate, I'm sure. But that's something that I think if there's areas, and like I said, I have no clue what they cost. I don't know how you arrive at where they are now. But that, in my opinion, you couldn't have enough of those, you know, real big brother action there, but you couldn't have enough of those up as far as you want to talk about good investments for safety. If people know they're there and know how to use them and know what they're looking at, that's an awesome tool. I mean, they don't have to leave the office. All right, we don't have to go to Frederick. It looks all right, you know.
Thanks, Derek. And you know, they say picture's worth 1,000 words. It definitely is, right? I mean, we see what's going on out there. I know we've also run into, well, folks say, well, it looks clear. You can't see the entire road. So, you know, a mile down the road, there's drift over the bridge. It's 6 foot tall, can't get through it. So, but yeah, you're right. I mean, folks who pop that open, holy cow, it does look nasty out there. They weren't jerking my chain. The roads are bad. But Craig, maybe you want to hit on the sites and where they're at.
Yeah, no, and that is, and I would agree, that's probably one of the real positive comments we get from people, appreciate the cameras and the locations, on a lot of it based on our drivers and the information they need to make decisions when they need to be out in some of those remote locations. And I don't know the exact number, I think we're a little over 100, and we kind of put a pause on it from the standpoint that each site's not a big investment. When you start approaching over 100, because we need to maintain the sites and that, so we're kind of taking a look at where do we have those coverage gaps. And I think that would be a good idea to maybe work with the locals as well if they got some locations, because there is some investment to get the communication in that there, and then the ongoing maintenance. So we're kind of in that process to identify some gaps and those areas that we don't have good coverage, both for our own operations as well as for drivers to make those decisions they need to make.
Can you clarify how long those images are on there, just to spell any?
Oh, yeah, so the images that, and they are just still images, we are not, some locations that have video, other states, I should say, we are capturing the still images and they are retained. I don't know the exact, how long,
About a half hour.
about a half hour, yeah, there's going through the cycle as far as that availability.
And maybe just one more thing on that, Craig. Recently, I think South Dakota UT got an award for all the western states for best use of innovation. I think that was the one that we got for the camera usage. And it wasn't just the cameras and helping with, you know, how do you treat the road, but all that data is available for National Weather Service and others, so they can do better forecasts for what's going to happen. You know, not being a very populated state, you don't have the information, the wind sensors, temperature sensors, pressure sensors like they would in a more populous state. So having those out there has really helped from a forecasting standpoint, help, you know, people be safe in weather events too. So, but I think we recently won that, and it was really focused on trying to make people's lives better.
Yeah, no, and yeah, you're right. It's not just cameras. Each of those is a weather station as well that feeds information to our forecasters, as well as the information that comes to our plow trucks as we make those decisions how to properly treat the road. So in addition to the cameras, we do look at those gaps for collecting the weather information as well.
Any other questions, comments for folks tonight? Okay. Well, again, I would like to hear feedback from those of you that are annual visitors to our STIP meetings, just kind of your thoughts on how it went tonight, whether it was better or worse, whatever. Either way is fine. We want to try something a little bit different, be more interactive, have more of a conversation. So I hope you felt that it was more of a conversation. If you weren't comfortable raising your hand and wanting to comment or talk about things, their safety chart is right over there. Mark Leiferman is going to be over there. That's Mark here on the left. He's our STIP project development program manager. This is Levi. Levi has been running all the tech. He's our STIP coordinator. So he and Mark have just done a tremendous job, and Steve trying to get this going. So if you get a chance to thank them, please do so. But Mark will be right underneath there for the the safety thought. You got some comments you want to share with him. We also have the region and statewide projects kind of over there. I'm sorry, we're gonna go over there with it. Well, a couple of our area engineers over there. I think Bruce is gonna be over there. So Bruce, you would be over there talking about the project coming up. If any of the other area engineers want to join them, Matt or Brad, that'd be great. I'll be up here, and then Craig's gonna be looking on Zoom and seeing if you've got any questions coming in virtually. So, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, buckle up on your way home, put your phones away, don't stop and have a beer on the way out. If you would, please, just get to where you need to go. Please get there safely. It's not just you using those roads, it's other families too. So be safe out there. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being engaged and sharing your ideas on thoughts and things. It really helps us to make better lives for better transportation. So with that, just get a quick total on count tonight, Mark.
37 in attendance.
37 in attendance. We also had our virtuals too. So again, thank you. Have a great night. Drive safe. There's state highway maps on the back table if you don't know where you're going.